What's going on? You're in the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about this new record from Empire of the Sun entitled Ask That God. They released that on July 26th. This is the fourth studio album for the Australian duo, and their follow-up to 2016's Two Vines. 8 years later, we have the return of Emperor Steel and Lord Littlemore. Little alliteration to make it slightly more regal. I kid. I think that the grandiose visuals work for what this outfit has set out to do from the beginning. I love that about their music, and I love their unique electronic pop style. I think it's difficult to carve out a niche in this genre, and maybe I'm wrong about that. But for me, when you start getting into electronic instrumentation, and then that makes up the majority of what you're doing, it's all about timing signatures, and there's all these different things that you have to start implementing as far as nuance to set your music apart because everybody's using the same stuff. What I like about these guys is the incorporation of alternative rock into their sound. They have this yacht rock vibe, this 70s breezy rock and roll feel that's always been incorporated to their sound. I love that about what they bring to the table, but they still make music that is incredibly upbeat. It's easy to dance to. It's easy to remix. And Luke Steele, I think his voice is fantastic. I think Nick Littlemore, what he brings to the table as far as his creativity, this is a great combination of guys that were for the most part, I think, done. So it's a fine example, I think, of what happens if sometimes just let a little time go by, let things develop organically. And I think that if things are truly meant to be, it sounds really corny and hokey, but in this case, it's a perfect example of these guys finding that impetus, finding the right inspiration, and bringing together a project that, it may have taken the better part of a decade after the release of their first record for people to jump on board. But this is a great band and an interesting story. It's something I want to talk about. It happens from time to time in popular music. You get an outfit that, I'd argue that maybe these guys were a little ahead of their time, releasing their debut record, Walking on a Dream. That's a song that really didn't chart in the US until 2016. It took a Honda car commercial, for Christ's sake. But 8 years later, all of a sudden now they have this banger of a song and they gain that visibility in the States. And it's something that's come up in the channel as well too. Success as a musician, as any type of artist really, isn't always necessarily predicated on what you're doing in the US. There are plenty of musicians that do extremely well by staying outside of the US, frankly. I think there's a lot of bullshit, pardon my French, that goes on with the industry in our country. So I don't necessarily disagree for bands not wanting to be on this side of the pond. I think Luke is one of those guys that found himself very alienated by his time in the United States. I think that leaving the US and the difficulties even that were presented with creating music, the writer's block that started with COVID, the separation that these guys had, still at the end of the day, it's nice to know that he's in a place being back where he's comfortable, back where that creativity is really just in full motion, in full effect. And so, yeah, 8 years later, it's cool to see a band like this come back. And I think that that's a big part of everybody's interest. And aside from just putting out a really cool collection of bangers and an album that, it's very pop driven. You can feel the influence of that radio friendly production on a lot of this stuff. That's part of what they do. I love it. I would never fault them for that. But I like towards the back end of this record, you get more of a proggy alternative rock feel. You get some experimental stuff coming off of some sessions that they were working on and decided to scrap after Two Vines. Some stuff that focused on Japan, and a handful of other songs that really are bordering on being about a decade old. So it's cool to see them throw a few of those tracks into the mix, and they sound great. I think towards the back end, some might argue that those few songs may be a little out of place, but I think that given what they're doing conceptually, because it's what they do, like you look at the visuals, you look at the videos, their stage performance, everything about this band, it's it's interesting and it's different, and not everybody's going to like it, but it worked for me, and I liked that. I liked the throwback to some older work that they had. It's nice to see that, even in those sessions, coming off that period of time where they began to struggle with songwriting, all this other stuff, and decided to focus on their own thing for a little while, that the impetus was still there to go back and work with some of that old stuff. I like that, just the objective nature of sometimes setting emotion and situation aside, and going back to things, knowing that working on them, going back to them will be for the better. It's a really cool example of that, amongst many other things. Getting to the song run on this record, it starts with changes. You get light synths and this funky bass build to open, drums hit to drive, great vocal melody. This is a song that, given the title, the band talks about, moving the empire, so to speak, in a different direction. These guys, they're so funny to listen to in or to read in interviews as well. I think that again, it's this an act. It's part of what they're doing. I don't know if they actually speak like this. If they do, it's kind of ridiculous. But given the personalities in the band, I like their approach, and reading interviews is pretty entertaining with them. But they're right about this song. It is a great way to open up this record. Cherry Blossom is your second track. A little arpeggiated guitar. I like, again, that rock and roll element that they're working into their pop style of music is so well done, I'd argue. I like the way that that guitar gives way to the drum, vocal driven track, light synth textures that work in and out of this. A pretty damn good song, another banger. Music on the Radio, your third track. This track coming from 2016, bright vocal melody, synths to open, rhythm hits for just a really serious funky track. I love this song. The hook is infectious. You get a little bit of a disco feel, just kind of that like 80s Euro pop feel. It's super well done, and you're getting the same thing carrying right into the feeling you get. Your fourth track is bright synths, and I love the keys that are working on this song. Again, driving rhythm out the gate. You get a new wave disco elements, and there's a nice little breakdown in this song that certainly makes it very unique as well. Your fifth song, AEIOU, featuring new, and it's Nick Littlemore's side project. Bouncy synth to open, auto-tune vocals enter into build, but then you get that regular vocal from Luke to hit. Nice rhythm on this song, great collaboration. Television is your sixth track. Lo-fi synth slowly builds into usher in a mellow track. You get this just simple mid-tempo drive on the song. Since that, I would argue they sound a little like Daft Punk, which Luke might not necessarily appreciate that. If you're familiar with the band, he's compared them to the Boys, which, for better or for worse, I think both bands have done a lot of great things, but you're stepping on some. I think you're walking on a dream when you start comparing yourself to Daft Punk and the influence that they've had. Luke, I won't apologize for that. However, let's get back into this. Happy Like You is your seventh track. You get frenzied synths to open, vocal, a little light bass drum, more percussion builds, music drops for a vocal pre-chorus, and then when the chorus hits, you just get this really nice funky flow. It's a nice melody in that song, really nice progression. Revolve is your eighth track. Big drums out the gate, simple wavy synth, light little funk in the bass. Nice tune there. Wild World, your ninth song. Light mellow synth fades in. You get this vocal that enters over the synth. It's playful and scattered. Second half of the song is this big instrumental jam for the most part. And this is where this album really starts to get more into that kind of like proggy territory. And especially considering what it began as, which was a very, pop driven, I dare say radio friendly record. Ask That God is your 10th song. Hits out the gate. Bright, funky jam. Really like the positioning of the song in between Wild World and then Rhapsodize is your penultimate track, coming out of 2017 here. And this is where we start working with that project. They were inspired by Japan. that they began working on. Ambient textures and this spoken word element that's super cool. It goes back and forth with gentle guitars and this bright vocal element. Very, very interesting song. It's kind of out in left field a little bit, like I said. And then Friends I Know, your final song, you get this melancholy piano vocal track. Lovely harmonies. I really love what's going on and work there. Light synths that build in and out of this thing. Beautiful album closer. This is a fun record. I'm gonna give this a 7.3 out of 10. Great to have these guys back making records. This is an outfit that's very consistent, and I'd say that the gap in time is certainly playing in their favor on this thing. It's interesting. You reflect on the period in time when they became popular in the US anyway, and it's right around the time they put out their third record, and then we don't hear from them again for the better part of a decade. So I hope good things happen to this band with this record. I've never seen them live, so really would like to make an effort to check them out, and if I'm there, I hope to see all of you if you see this. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2024. Hope you found this review helpful, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews on the Beat Sessions. We will see you next time.